So today we're going to look at the cycle of phases and aspects. And as we do that, we're going to look at two charts throughout this session. All right. We're not going to do in-depth analysis. The purpose today is to just explain the 8 phases of the circle to you. So just like we can take a circle and divide it into the polarities, divide it into the triplices, divide it into the 12 archetypes. We can take a circle and we can divide it by 8. And in astrology, that's called the phases. And if you want to, you can just think of this as the 8 phases of the sun and the moon: new, crescent, first quarter, etc. When I started in evolutionary astrology 40 years ago, very few astrologers really looked at the difference between first quarter squares, or to be more accurate, crescent quarter squares, first quarter squares, disseminating squares, last quarter squares. I have seen over the last few decades that more and more astrologers are really starting to take this into consideration with any 2 planets in the zodiac. So here are the phases. And what I really want to point out to you is that they go back and forth between active and passive polarities. The active or yang polarity is always energy moving out from the center. The passive or yin polarity is always energy moving back into the center. If you noticed, each of these 8 phases are 45 degrees. When you get to the end of one of these 8 phases, you get to 43, 44 degrees, you get to 88, 89 degrees. That is always going to carry its own frustration, because energy is either moving from active to passive or passive back to active. It's like a really strong gestation point. And it works for all 8 of the phases. We'll have a couple of examples for this as we go through and look at everything. So 0 to 360 is a complete cycle of evolution. We know this: birth, growth, bloom, decay, death, rebirth. All of us, be us humans, be us plants, be us Gaia itself in the galaxy, we're always in a continuous state of evolution. There are 2 types. They're what we call uniform or Darwinian, which means day by day, week by week, we all evolve, we grow up, we get old. And then there is cataclysmic evolution. Think of earthquakes and volcanoes. Think of the last time you had a traumatic event in your life. We will go through cataclysmic evolution on an individual basis. We go through it on a collective basis as groups of people. How many of you were in shock the day after the USA presidential election last fall? Example. Now, the biggest thing to recognize is that every planet or point in space is in a phasal relationship with every other planet or point in space. And basically, an aspect is understood from within the phase first. The phase is the foundation. The aspect fills in the details. And I'm not going to move this, but I'm going to tell you that aspect may or may not be there between any 2 planets. Follow this right here. Aspect first, foundation, phase first, foundation. Aspect fills in the details. There may or may not be an aspect between any 2 planets. When you can come from that foundation, it helps take a lot of confusion out of the individual aspects. By the way, one little promotion for myself. If this is fast to do this in 75 minutes. I teach this as a 6-hour workshop. So if you go to my website and you look under educational materials, I have a 6-hour workshop that I did with the Astrological Association of Manitoba a couple of years ago, complete with chart examples through each aspect from 0 to 360. So you can go there and find that if you'd like to have this in more detail. All right. Thank you for understanding that. So this is going to be where, and I might change my mind, Masha. Let me practice this, okay? Let me practice this for you. So I've got to find, oh, I did it here. Okay. Okay, let's see. Whoops. I may not do this very well. Okay, I might just go with, I'll just, I don't, I mean, I'm just gonna move it for you here. Yeah. Yeah, right there. Yeah, 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 thank you. And then I got to click to go back to moving the slides again, right? And so determining aspects to planets, they move counterclockwise. In EA, we always start with the slowest moving planet, and then we go counterclockwise to the faster moving planet. So in this example here, when, and I'm gonna, this is one of the areas where I separate. I compare the inner planets, Moon through Mars, to the sun. I compare the sun to the outer planets. One area where I differ from Jeffrey Green's original teachings, and where I switched to this was from Laura Nalbandian. So I've been using it this way for quite a while. The example here, sun is balsamic phase to Saturn. Here's Saturn, here's sun. Saturn is the starting point. We're all the way around the circle to see that sun is balsamic to Saturn. The other example that I have for you here is Pluto and Venus. We start with Pluto here at 10 degrees. We go to Venus at 21. You following what I'm saying in regards to this? Okay. So again, start with slower moving planet, go counterclockwise to the faster moving planet. All right. So let's see here. I got to click on this. Click outside the box. You may have to come show me this one. Thank you. You get your, yeah, job security, you get your exercise. There you go. Got it. Okay, got it. So how do you determine aspects when the nodal axis is included? Mean motion of the nodes is retrograde 90% of the time. You always start with the planet and you go clockwise to each of the nodes. Okay, so what we've got is the north node making a balsamic conjunction to Uranus. Then start with Uranus, you go clockwise, you get to the node, it's a balsamic conjunction. Okay, start with Uranus, you go to the south node, it is a gibbous opposition. It's less than 180 degrees. Follow? Okay, so I get asked this question. I don't have the slide, but we can explain it pretty easy. When you follow the four angles, first, fourth, seventh, 10th, they move in a clockwise motion, just like the nodes. So if you want to know an angle relationship to a planet, you follow the same pattern. Okay, start with the planet, you go clockwise to the fourth house or clockwise to the first house, whatever angle you want to work with. Okay, all right. If you want to compare the nodes to the four angles, you start with the angle clockwise to the node. Following? Okay, all right, good. That's our math. All right, so we're going to be pretty good here with this, as long as you can follow this. Now, if you happen to have SolarFire software, it's very popular. This is how you can find what SolarFire calls the difference listing. And this is where it goes from 0 to 360 with all the planets and the nodes. So SolarFire actually does the math for you and lists it out for any chart. So that makes it very simple. Okay, got your photos? All right. Oops, let me go this way. When you are working with transits, progressions, and solar arcs, the natal planet or point in space, that would be the north node, south node, the four angles, they become the starting point. And forecasting planets are compared to that natal planet or point, counterclockwise motion. All right. That one's pretty easy too for us to understand. All right. Now, I want to bring this one up for you because this is a foundation to evolutionary astrology, and this is just a loose approximation. There are variations to this, but we don't have the time to go into it. So for those of us, and now I'm going to see, I may need you, Masha, I'm going to see if I can do this. I got to click on this. Nope, that's not it. Okay, I think I might have it. Yeah, I got it. Okay, I'm gonna bring this back down to the bottom. I'm trying to figure out where I can put it. I'm probably not gonna get to it. Okay, you can see the 70%. There I go, there. All right, there. You just gotta write down 70% for yourself, all right? So in EA, when we work with the evolutionary states of consciousness, meaning souls go through lifetimes and lifetimes, expanding their awareness and understanding of themselves in the universe. This is not known by a birth chart. You must observe and correlate, observe and correlate. Approximately 7 out of 10 people consensus can't step outside the space-time that they are incarnated in. Eventually, we expand into individuated consciousness, approximately 2 out of 10. I'm going to think for myself what my beliefs are, what I think politically, what I have on any subject in the universe. It's my ideas and my beliefs. Eventually, we expand into what we call spirituated consciousness, which is where we understand universal, timeless laws and principles. I like to say the mystical side of any of our human-made religions. And as you can see, when 70% exist in consensus, they're the majority. They make the decisions, the laws, our norms and taboos. Most of us in this room, beyond consensus, you probably wouldn't show up. So you're already beyond, I'm going to, and into, I'm going to think for myself. Now, when we work with our 2 charts, as we go through the circle of phases and aspects, both of these charts are going to be in consensus state, more or less third consensus, as we call it. One might be moving into the individuated. We'll check that out as we decide to go through everything. So let's go with this. I got to do this, and then I got to do click outside of it. Gotcha. Okay, so now let's go here, and let's see if I can get this now. So I click here. And I'm going to move this back down here. We should be okay there. All right, so here we are starting with the new phase, as you can see on your circle. It's known as instinctual emergence. By the way, Dane Rudier adapted a lot of these keywords in his book, The Lunation Cycle. Jeffrey Green then expanded it to work with all planets. Now let's get this. So when we are working with new phase, again, it's yang, energy moving out from the center. It's brand new. Everything's instinctual. And so this phase wants all its freedom to have a diversity of experiences. I got to try this. I got to try that. And it's through the action reaction that any 2 planets will start to learn how they relate to each other. Venus, Mars, it would be relationships. All right. Mercury, Jupiter, it would be the left brain learning new knowledge that the right brain, Jupiter, then puts together. Now, what happens with this new phase is it's so brand new. You know that 2 steps forward, 1 step back that we all go through? We burst out. When we reach insecurity, then we got to come back a little bit, be secure again, go out there. So it's a back forth in this phase. But there is the fear of the past. We're afraid that we're going to go back to the past. And again, details will depend what two planets are involved. What are the signs and houses involved? Is it a conjunction of 5 degrees new phase? Or is it 20 degrees beyond a conjunction new phase? The 20 degrees beyond will say, oh, I've done this before. I'm going to burst out. I got it. I know what I'm doing now. I'm starting to get this pattern. So instinctual emergence is what this phase is. The new phase always relates to the opposite full phase. And what is the full phase? You will find as we go through these 8 phases, in some ways, they'll seem similar to the 12 archetypes. What I'm describing here might seem like Aries, Libra, or first 7th to you. But we're expanding that and going through it in 8 archetypes instead of 12. Okay, got it? Full phase, though, is others. All right? And what new phase can fear is that the other, the person, the philosophy, the experience is more than what they know. And what new phase has to be careful of is losing their instinct to move forward and start to follow whatever it is they are fearful of. So that instinctual knowledge of the new phase has to learn when to listen to full phase and when to initiate for themselves. Follow? Okay. We're going to move into our first chart example, Denzel Washington. I chose very well-known figures, so we don't have to worry about their environmental conditionings, as we say in EA. Anybody not know who he is? Okay. He was in the news recently because he was at the Cannes Festival in France, and he got an honorary award, the top award you can get. Right before that award, paparazzi was pulling on him, and Denzel turned around and kind of let him have it and walked away from the press conference. So what we are going to work with here, and I got my little cheat sheet here because we got so many aspects to go through, but I really wanted to give you example with him. And here I am again. I'm going to move this thing. I'm going to get the hang of this, everybody. So just hold on just a sec so we can move ourselves around as we need to. Okay, so then I'm going to come outside that. All right. So what I want to work with this, with Denzel, and again, this is not full chart. All right. So what we've got here is it's probably easy for most of you to understand. Mercury is new phase to the sun, brand new cycle. The North Node is new phase to the sun. Follow the math with that? So we've got 2 new phases going on here. That's Sun, Mercury, Capricorn, 3rd house. This gentleman can take on almost any figure. And many times he plays figures that are very Capricorn. I have not seen Gladiator 2. I don't do violence very well. But he plays the bad guy. I think the major bad guy in Gladiator 2. He's not known for playing the bad guys. He has a very religious background. His dad was a Pentecostal minister. Denzel Washington is a licensed minister in the Pentecostal Church of God of Christ or whatever. So he takes his beliefs very seriously, reads the Bible every day. Yes. But what I'm pointing out here is his role as an actor. He is always taking on all kinds of new roles. And if you've watched him in any of his films, he takes on characters that are so diverse. Almost always good guys, once in a while a bad guy. But you can watch him just play anything. One of my favorite movies of him is Inside Man, the con job with Clive Owens. That's a good one. So again, you see that instinctualism that comes out. And you can see it when he, all of a sudden, that Capricorn energy turned to that paparazzi and went after him. And they went back and forth a little bit, that instinctual Capricorn energy that says, you aren't going to tell me what to do. Got it? Example for you with that. There are other new phase examples with Denzel, Saturn, Venus. And again, I'm kind of in the aspects right here, right into here. He actually got married on his Saturn return. Him and his wife renewed their vows when he was going through his Uranus opposition, of all things. Don't can't assume. And he has been married to the same woman for I don't know, 40 years or so. Long time. So here's the two fixed signs. So here is a variation. Even though Venus is new phase Saturn and he's learning new structures of values and giving and receiving in relationships, they are in fixed water and in fixed earth signs. That tempers that new phase, gotta get out and do it all. Gotta have my freedom. So this is not someone who went through five wives. This is where you have to take in signs, houses, and also observe, correlate. EA, gonna borrow Denzel's words, preaches, teaches, observe, correlate, observe, correlate. All right, follow with this? Go ahead, Masha.
I guess I'm just so new to this particular thing. I still don't understand how you're coming to understand that a certain planet is in the new phase.
Again, okay. Question is, we're going to review how to find the phases and the aspects. All right. So we know that Venus moves faster than Saturn, correct? So Saturn becomes the stationary point, and we go to Venus, and it is new phase. Hold on, I gotta have my math for me because I'm not going to be very good at this when I'm in my brain going on right here. I can look right here. 5 degrees, isn't it? 18 to 23, 5 degrees, 4 or 5 degrees. So they're 4 or 5 degrees apart. So it's not only new phase, it happens to be a new phase conjunction. It has an aspect in addition to the phase. Got it?
So the farther apart the planets are.
Yes, if we want to look. Yes. And so to give you example here, we have got Mercury new phase to Saturn. We have Sun new phase to Saturn. They're not more than 45 degrees apart into crescent phase. Got it? Okay. All right. So now we're going to go back and I'm going to try and do this again. Click. Yeah, I'm getting it. I'm getting it. Okay. So now I should be able to do this. Click. Oh, get outside. Click. Click. Crescent phase. It's covering up a few of the degrees. I apologize for this. I did not know that the transcript was going to show up on the slide. So future, I will not have to move. But crescent phase, you can see, goes from 45 to 90 degrees. So this is yin energy, as we can see. If you can't read this, these go yang, yin, yang, yin, active, passive. All right. So crescent phase is, its keyword is struggle. This is where energy goes in. We've had that 45 degrees to go out there, action, reaction, action, reaction. Now energy turns within. And now we got to internalize and create that new. We want it's almost like a gestation phase. Now we've got to establish it and make it something that we can actually know. Because it's yin, it will draw us inward. It will have a withdrawal energy to it. So we can go in, focus on ourselves and those two planets together, and whatever it is, they need to put down the roots for. Now, in the first 90 degrees, first quarter of the circle, we will still have initiations. We can still have new stuff take place, but it becomes less and less random and more focused as to what those two planets want to create together. All right. Again, yin, it requires personal effort to change, because what can happen, crescent phase relates to the opposite phase, disseminating phase. Disseminating phase, key point is society. And here again, we have a tendency to think the other knows more than we do. So we can still slide back. Those first 90 degrees is opposite all of the other, full phase, disseminating phase. And so again, it takes courage and willpower for any two planets in crescent phase to move forward on their own with what they think is instinctually best, versus society saying, you got to do it this way. This is how you need to be in a relationship, Venus, Mars. This is how you need to find a career, Jupiter, Saturn, crescent phase. All right, follow with this. Okay, watch my time here. I think we're doing okay. All right, so with back to Denzel here, and let me get this down. Let's see, we go like this, click. Oh, nope, we're gonna go like this. Let's put it right there, okay? And so with Denzel, what we are looking at here with crescent phase is, one of the examples that I have for you is Sun to Mars. So I compare Mars to the Sun. So Sun becomes a starting point. And here we have Mars, and that is 71 degrees within crescent phase. Now, within crescent phase, or excuse me, within the cycle of phases and aspects, EA will work with some of the minor aspects. 72 degrees is, hold on, I'm going right brain, left brain, right brain, left brain. So I just want to make sure quintile. In EA, quintiles are creativity. And so if you look at this third house sun, that is Mars quintile to it over here in 6 Pisces, okay? Pisces, here's the ability to take on any type of role in acting. And 6th house, when I was going through the list of all the movies he was made, I was going, does this guy ever rest? 6th house. So he is just bursting with creativity. And he went from being an actor to a director to a producer. A lot of Hollywood does, but he has done it in a very, I want to say that Sun in Capricorn, mature, creative way. So because it is crescent phase and it is yin, my guess is, even though he's so active in Hollywood, I think that he puts a particular internal thought, crescent phase, as to exactly where he wants to put his actions and energy, Mars. Follow with that? Okay. He doesn't have a goat yet, which is where you get all the Academy Award, the Globe, and the whatevers. He's got 3 out of 4. We'll see what he does. He started in theater, and he's back on stage now doing Shakespeare with that. So I may have to just go to kind of shorten this up with aspects. I mean, I put like 4 aspects in with each phase, and it's like, okay, Kimberly, that may not work. I'll try and find something that's just one particular for you. Okay, so I gotta do, let's get this down. See if I can get this back down to here, that. Okay. Oop. Nope, never mind. Hold on, I want to show you something. This is on the collective level. Okay. Take a moment. I use Pluto at 0 degrees. And this is where the planets are in the sky right now. We have Pluto in Aquarius. We have Neptune moving into Aries. Uranus is going to move into Gemini July 7th. So 2026, the 32, 13 more crescent sextiles between these two. Uranus to Neptune, make Neptune 0, Uranus 60 degrees. There's going to be 5 crescent sextiles, 25, 27, starting later this year. Uranus to Pluto, going this way. Okay, 5 first quarter trines that are going to come along in 26 to 28. So just briefly, I was prepping and I go, I got to tell you guys this, all right? So Neptune and Pluto have a 495-year cycle together, 500 years. They go through the zodiac from Aries to Pisces every 26,900 years. They're almost every 27,000 years. Their conjunctions move through the zodiac 4 to 7 degrees every time they conjunct. Last conjunction 500 years ago was in early Gemini. Their 1891-92 conjunctions were in 7 to 8 degrees Gemini. Their next conjunctions 500 years from now are going to be middle degrees Gemini. Think about that. 3 conjunctions, the 1890s in Gemini. Did we go into the modern age or what? Corporate America came about during that time period. You know, conquering the globe had already been done, but we were starting to, you know, decide who gets to be power of what. I mean, when you just think about that for a minute, it's like, whoa. Now, here's the thing about the 60-degree sextile in this crescent phase. Even it's yin, okay? But I love this about Jeffrey Green. He would always say, when any 2 planets are in a waxing sextile, that's 60 degrees, half a trine, to each other, choices made, crescent, trying to create something. Choices made at the waxing 60 degrees follow the rest of the way around the circle. Here we have Neptune and Pluto making 13 more crescent sextiles, 26 to 32. How are we going to choose from an ethical morality point of view, Neptune, going forward on a collective level with our souls? And then, you know, this is a whole subject on its own, but I wanted to point out with cycle of phases and aspects, that whole Pluto Neptune cycle to you. Yeah, a little bit to wrap your mind around sometimes. All right, so let's see. Okay, this, no, go outside thing, Kim. There. Okay, so now we're going to go into first quarter. Crises in action. You probably are familiar with this one a little bit. You think that first quarter phase of the moon, 90 to 135 degrees. It contains that waxing trine within it, but we're back to yang energy again. And by the way, you can, you can go online and download this PDF. Okay, so you've got it to refer back to however you want. All right. So I'm going to move this back down here because now we're going here. First quarter phrase, crises in action, Dane Rudier. This is where we really got to completely bust free from the past between any 2 planets and move ourselves forward, manifest whatever it is. It can't stay crescent yin phase in our head anymore and ponder it. It has to get out there into the world. Now, what will it relate to? The original conjunction between any 2 planets. Now we might be getting into what we would call reincarnation, because who remembers their conjunction between Uranus and Pluto last time in their natal chart? So crises in action creates that fear of failure. And this is the point where we're the most afraid of sliding back. But this is also the point where we decide, out of all that experience we've had, first 2 phases, how are we now going to say, this is it? This is what I'm going to do. So you can go study any of your first quarter squares between any 2 planets. You will be able to relate to this relative to your life, those planets, signs, and houses. All right. So for those of you who are or want to be counseling astrologers, you're starting to get how you can take any 2 planets, find their phase, energy out, energy in. Is there a specific aspect? You start to get the creativity of putting it all together. Oops, I went too far. The opposite of first quarter is last quarter phase. The key word for last quarter is crises in belief. 3/4 of the way around the circle, been there, done that. Okay, and so here is where we come to the fulcrum of others know more. However, this is where we bust out and say, this is what I know for me. And I am going forward from this point with what is manifesting for me. Venus, Mars, my own way of being in a relationship. Okay, Jupiter and Saturn, how I'm going to choose to establish myself in society with a career, doing it my way. Question?
You're using polarity points with this as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Each phase will always relate to its opposite phase, and we'll go through all 8. So we'll see first quarter become the opposite phase. Okay. All right. So back to Denzel in first quarter phase, and I think I can do this without moving the thing around. Okay. We'll maybe go a little bit faster, but one of them that we can have for Denzel, because we've been kind of talking about relationships. Let me get this right. First quarter, no, Mercury. Okay, let's see here what I want to show you. Okay, yeah, right here. We can go from Neptune to Moon. Neptune 28 Libra, first house. This also, Neptune relates so much to Hollywood and taking on all kinds of personas, and this first house energy of believing in oneself and that Libra relationship. How many personas can I take on? Okay. What we have here is the moon is over here in that first quarter phase to Neptune. And it's, oh, this is another minor aspect for you. They're at 101 degrees. All right. And in our cycle of phases and aspects, help me out, everybody. Bisectile, creativity again. Now, bisectile starts, and when it's a waxing bisectile, first quarter phase, okay? Quintiles are creativity. This is how you remember this. Quintiles, creativity. Septiles, element of fate. Okay, element of fate. So you can take this whole situation. When I was looking at this and prepping, I saw the Hollywood stuff here, but then I saw the moon, and there's 2 things going on. In relationship to his career, that moon can kind of do the Aquarian detachment from the role when he plays the villain, do it the best he can, even though that's not his internal psyche. Moon, Neptune. Okay. But it also can allow him, Aquarius, remember, is friendship. Aquarius is groups. He can tap in emotionally to other groups and be with that group. He played the war hero. He played the war villain when he got his Academy Award. When I saw that from a relationship perspective, I thought, his wife is his best friend. Moon, Neptune. Wife is his best friend. They renewed their vows. I told you this at his Uranus opposition. Or is that Uranus 26 Cancer? So first quarter phase When it starts to move past that 90 degrees, it will get to that biceptal of creativity, and it'll keep going till it gets to the waxing trine. And so I always say trines are rewards of prior effort. You made an effort, you'll get a reward. You don't make the effort, you're going to be the couch potato. All right. So again, I got to keep us moving on because I only got a half hour and we have the others to go. I put this slide in here, the trines. This is the same slide as before. This is to show you that the Uranus, Pluto are in the first trines here, as you can see this on your screen right here. So we're going to have all kinds of creativity that's going to come out, okay, with the two air signs, all right? But relative to the distortions of patriarchal conditionings, we might also have those trying to get away with more shinola, I'll call it that, okay? Because you can suppress natural law, you can distort natural law, but you cannot destroy it. And we are getting to the point on the planet that if we don't return to more natural ways of learning to be together, we could easily destroy major parts of the planet, if not ourselves. And so what we've got, to me, and this is just my personal opinion, I think we've got enough of human consciousness, even in consensus state, realizing that we can't destroy ourselves anymore. So stay tuned. We shall see. Okay, so this is gibbous phase, all right? And this is where we are going from 135 to 180, back to yin energy again, all right? So with gibbous phase, okay, this is similar to what we would call Virgo, goes from 15 degrees Leo to 30 degrees Virgo, if you want to compare the 8 to 12. And this is where we have to go back into the center, and we have to start transitioning to recognizing that the universe doesn't revolve around us. We needed that yang energy of first quarter phase to go out into the world and create. Now we've got to look at what we created and make whatever adjustments we need to then move into the full phase of equality. Follow that? So if there needs to be any ego busting, it will happen in this phase. You've manifested this new career, but how is it going to actually work within society, so to speak? All right. So we have all kinds of experiences that move us inward, that cause us to reflect, that causes to adjust however it's necessary to do so. And the closer we get to 180 degrees halfway, this is what you can't see on the bottom of your screen, we vacillate between inferiority, superiority, inferiority, superiority. Okay? Because you know, we, again, out there, in, out, in, that we go through with this phase. Now, opposite phase is balsamic, the last phase. And so what we learn in that gibbous phase in relationship to its polarity is that we start to understand there's a higher power out there. There are greater forces in the universe, and we can start tapping into them in that gibbous phase, all right? And it allows us to find new understandings, new realities, deeper meanings. All right. Then we can do in that Virgo similarity, how to be of service, how to take those two planets, whatever they are, and help them manifest, but yet do it in a way that is more and more in harmony with the world, rather than fighting against it as we did at 90 degrees. Okay. So here's Denzel one more time. And for him with the gibbous phase, let me see here. I'm trying to see if I've got anything that doesn't record that I don't have to move the thing, but it doesn't look like it. So give me a moment. We'll go up here and see if we've got that up far enough. Okay. Look at Chiron here at 27 Capricorn. Oh, let me give you the minutes. 27 Capricorn, 23. To Jupiter at 27 Cancer, 18. That is almost an exact opposition. Follow it? It's only 5 minutes off, isn't it? I got my math right. Very, very close. So can you see how that inferiority, superiority is going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth? And yet it's really trying to figure out how to get to an equality. Chiron, the wounds. Where has he in past lives perhaps been wounded as a leader or as an authoritarian, or as in positions of authority? Okay. And Jupiter's retrograde up there in Cancer and that 10th house. Okay. So he's really got to learn how to balance that inner intuition, Jupiter Cancer, with his woundedness. I think that he probably has past lives where one of two things, and maybe both. Past lives where he was the leader and didn't go so well for the tribe. Okay. And perhaps past lives where he wasn't the leader. Nobody listened to him and it still didn't go well for the tribe. So he works his way through this in his movies as, you know, the guy who saves the roaring train in whatever that movie was, you know, the train that was going 90 miles an hour and, you know, the hero there. Okay. But then he also was his supporting Best Actor award was in the movie Glory. It was his first award. And he was a Black soldier who had to work out his frustration and anger. See both of those? Is that example? Okay. All right. I am going to try and keep us going. We are going to move to another chart now. Okay. So let's go to our second half and see if I have this there. Okay. Now we're going to go into full phase, which is back to Yang, meaning or completion. All right. Following. Here at NORWAC, we're not allowed to pass out handouts during a lecture because of all of you online. No offense to any of us. I call myself a PowerPoint queen, and I am always handing out paperwork so you write less. So sorry, not gonna work. That's why I said, go get the PDF afterwards. I think they're already up. If you go, yes, okay. Okay. Oh, remember that for next year, you guys. Go get your PDFs. Oh, you get A+. She's got her little iPad out there. Okay, so click. Okay. Okay. So here is meaning or completion. And especially in the early degrees of this phase, it can be very problematic because we're divided between wanting to be free, independent. We just spent the first 180 degrees trying to be me. And now we have to go into the second half of the zodiac and integrate back with the other, regardless of those two planets involved. So it's Yang, but it still creates a back and forth energy. Again, circle divided by 2. And so we want to bust out, and then we want to go in. We want to bust out, go in. So we can vacillate back and forth between extremes of social immersion. I got to learn what everybody else is doing, and withdrawal. Wait a minute, I got to go back to me. And what happens then is in the social immersion phase, we feel overwhelmed by everybody else's values, needs, and desires between any two planets that we're looking at. What does society think about Venus, Mars in a relationship? What is society telling you Jupiter, Saturn to do as your career? Okay. And so we can lose our, whoops, wait a minute, wrong one. We can lose our own essence. And so sooner or later, we've got to go back into that isolation so that we can then find ourselves. Okay. So the social, again, you get what I'm saying right here. I'm talking over myself and talking both directions. I'm going back and forth. Social immersion, we go into everybody else. And then in the social withdrawal, we've got to go back and find ourselves. And so it goes back and forth and back and forth. And the thing is to learn to instinctively balance when to be out there, because that can help you go into society, and when to be in isolation, okay? And that will lead you to social integrating individual purpose. Sorry, I talked. Did you get that? Real quick. Again, in this phase, the closer it is to the opposition aspect, the more intense this is, till we learn to balance ourself and others between those two planets. So full phase relates to its opposite, new phase. Now, does that start to make sense for you? Because we have got to, I already said this last slide, honor when we need to withdraw, and honor when we need to go out into society. And that's how any two planets are going to balance themselves. All right. So now we're going to switch to Adele. Anybody here not know who she is? And by the way, I got to give you this little tidbit. Her first album, 19, was released in 2008, right here. Pluto leaving Sag, going into Capricorn. Her second album, 21, was released in 2011, right when Pluto and Capricorn was going over these Capricorn planets. And then we had 25. If you're familiar with her albums go by the year, her age of when she wrote them. Okay. And so, yes, we probably are all pretty familiar with Adele. When's your next album, honey, please? I have some of her albums. She started singing when she was 4 years old. She was raised by a single mother, in case you don't know these little tidbits. And she went to some musical school and got signed really early. And that's why she was, if you, don't ask me the specifics of songs, but I was just a babe, didn't know what I was doing, you know, in her relationships, one of her relationship songs. Another thing about her is she's known for saying that she's really had to deal with panic attacks and anxiety. Throughout her life, she has had to work her way through those. You glance at the chart, you see the oppositions in the chart, okay? There are gibbous and full phase oppositions. So working here for a minute with Adele, we have the moon. Whoops, go back, Henry. We have the moon, okay? All right, in full phase opposition to Chiron, full phase opposition to Venus. So Venus, balsamic Chiron, I'm going to skip to this, all right? Gemini, 12th house. The inner side of Venus, Taurus second, has rulership of the throat. But we also find that Gemini is the voice, okay? So can you see how perhaps she has had some woundedness about being able to speak up and speak out? And she came through this lifetime deciding to sing it. And everything that she feels on deep, deep emotional levels, okay, moon, full phase to these two, all the relationship stuff she's experienced, she's knowing that her albums are about relationship breakups. Her first album in 2019 was an early relationship breaking up. Okay, when she broke up with the father of her child, I don't know which album came out then, but another one. So let's see if she switches now with her new relationship that she's had for a couple of years and maybe changes the tone of what she writes about. We'll find out. But so you can just see here that emotional back and forth, moon and Sag, okay? I got to get past my anxiety attacks and I've got to just sing my emotions and, heal my woundedness through what I write about, what I sing about. Does that make sense? Follow that with everything? Okay, so I'm watching my time. We got 20 minutes.
Can you go back to the last slide with the full phase thing again?
Yep, sure.
I guess you don't have time to talk about that Sun, Jupiter, Pluto, huh?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, this is still full phase. She's talking about the fact that she's a 5th house Pluto Scorpio at about 11. And we have full phase with Jupiter Sun 13, 15. Okay. And again, for me, I would start with Jupiter and put the Sun new phase Jupiter. Okay, all right. And in Taurus, again, here's more symbolization about the voice. And you know how Jupiter expands everything? I mean, her first performance where she got noticed, any of you remember this? She got scheduled on Saturday Night Live. No one knew her. She had just released an album in 2008 before the presidential election between Obama and John McCain. And guess who was the surprise guest? Sarah Palin with Tina Fey doing the interpretation of her.
Yes.
I watched it. I actually saw it live. Yeah, dating myself. But anyway, you can see this whole thing right here. So here's that whole relationship thing. And, talking about some of her relationship codependencies that she's had, especially being raised with a single mom, and father was, pretty much not in the life from the time she was 2 years old. So think of the projections of arrested childhood development, 5th house, Pluto Scorpio, that could be projected onto partners, all or nothing, and how full phase she's really had to learn how to believe in herself and find some of her own power and self-reliance. Can you see how she's went back and forth with that in relationships? Yeah. And to her credit, when she divorced the father of her child, they had no prenup.
Oh.
And she was very generous with him. And there are still good friends raising their son together. They have houses across the street from each other in LA.
Wow.
I did my research. Answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So then what did we give us?
Hold on.
Full phase
Hold on,
from 15 Sun to 11 Pluto?
hold on. Pluto is at 11. 180 degrees is 11 Taurus.
Oh, I was going from Sun.
Yeah, no, Pluto, you start with Pluto, counterclockwise to Jupiter. Hold on a second here. I've got it. Pluto Jupiter is 182 degrees. Pluto Sun is 184. Okay. So disseminating phase. This is yin. The key word for disseminating is society. And sometimes this is the phase that people kind of have the hardest time with. And basically it just means that you have to take any two planets in disseminating phase and they cannot ignore the consensus. You've got to learn how to integrate it into society. relative to the first half of the zodiac, you have to have yourself between those two planets. But how do they integrate into society? So you've got to learn society. You've got to learn how consensus says Mars, Venus does relationships. You've got to learn how Jupiter, Saturn says this is how we do career. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to conform in disseminating phase, but you have to understand it. And then when you understand it, you can be part of maybe helping disseminating phase or society evolve. Okay? So you've got yourself that you're bringing along, and you're learning how to operate in society, and yet having an internalization yin phase of yourself that you can help evolve society. All right? Then again, down at the bottom here, you can remain yourself within society. All right? This is an interesting phase to study with your own chart and any two planets. All right? So, what's the opposite? Crescent phase. Remember 40, whoops. I was touching the buttons. Remember that 45 to 90 degrees, that first yin phase where you have to internalize and germinate and really establish. Okay, so here you are putting all that out into society now without losing yourself. So in regards to Adele, when we get to disseminating phase, I wanted to show you this one just so that I was giving example with the notes. So now thank you for asking me about Pluto, the Pluto oppositions. Remember, so here's Pluto at 11 Scorpio. And remember how the nodes go clockwise. North node is disseminating phase to Pluto, and they are at 229 degrees. Disseminating phase starts at 225, 4 degrees past it. So she's just really moving into that phase where her own soul is having to understand its own power nature. We're talking two fixed signs, okay? Scorpio, Leo house, 5th house, okay? And the North Node is the ego that we're striving to develop in this lifetime, okay? And here it is up in her 10th house in Pisces, all that sensitivity that goes back and forth. And so here she is having to go out on stage, society, and put herself out there in front of everybody. And that sensitive Pisces moon, you know, can have, it's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And yet, chances are, once she gets out there, gets past the first song or two, whew, she comes into her power. All right. I have 10 minutes, okay? And we have to move through 2 more. Last quarter, we might have to skip the examples and get to the end. Last quarter is crises in consciousness or belief. So we're 3/4 of the way around the circle. Been there, done that. I've found myself. I've learned how to go back and forth with others. I've integrated my 2 planets in society. Now what? There must be more than this. Okay? And so this is where we're like, I've gotten to figure out that consensus society, but I want more. Okay? Make sense? So when we first move into that last quarter phase, that is energy moving out. So we still got to keep working with those 2 planets. We don't get to skip to 0. So this, as we start to enter that last quarter of the circle, this is where we have to continue to do what we know how to do. as we try to find deeper value and meaning to it. Okay? All right? You know, think of, in the case of Adele, you know, how many more shows in Las Vegas can she do? Been there, done that. All right, now, what we will find, again, this is going to start here, but this works all the way through to 360, all right? We began to progressively detach and decondition. We had to learn society and integrate in it. And now we got this crisis of, well, I want a little more than that. So we start here. We have to go through the opposite phase. Oh, excuse me, I got more to do here, okay? So we start here at the 270 and carry through. The purpose of the crises in consciousness or beliefs is to expand consciousness and embrace universal truths that are not limited to human belief systems that are timeless. So we begin this process, this is what I was saying, culminating and completing any desires unfinished, not resolved, related to those two planets. So if we take Venus, Mars as an example, in their last quarter, Venus to Mars, we can't settle for consensus type relationships. We've got to have a partner who can look at the deeper meanings of what we value Venus and how we want to create it, Mars, in our relationship together and as we give back and forth with each other. All right, follow. Okay, so last quarter, okay, relates to its opposite first quarter phase. This is where we can totally have a sense of losing ourselves because we have become so ingrained into society. So 180 to 270, here we were learning everything about society. Now 270 to 360 last quarter, we have to start going back and find ourselves. And still, relative to any two planets, finish up, support ourselves in society. Where do we leave society? How do we balance it back and forth? All right. How do we find value and meaning in going back and forth? Let's skip it down for a moment and get to these last two slides, and then we can come back and look at both of them. All right. Balsamic phase is the last quarter. It is known as spirit or ideals. This is where we start culminating, okay, everything from the last quarter phase, but we also have to culminate the entire cycle from everything that started at new phase conjunction. And then we can start anew. However, remember I said that the ending of each phase gets very frustrating the last few degrees? Think of 0 to 360. Think of a balsamic conjunction 5 degrees from 0. So 355, 356. This is the most frustrating part of the zodiac because any planet in a balsamic conjunction, it can taste tomorrow. And yet it has to walk through today to get to tomorrow. What needs to be finished up? What needs to be finished up? Oh, when you have clients who have planets in that balsamic conjunction, one of the best things you can do for them relative to those two planets is help them with patience and bringing those two planets to a culmination. Because chances are, if it's Venus to Mars, there's going to be relationship issues coming up. Chances are, if it's Jupiter to Saturn, I've been using those two planets in career. There can be career issues. I don't want to punch a time clock anymore. Why can't I be an entrepreneur? And so you've got to help them through that balsamic finishing and completion cycle because the more patient you are with finishing up, the more you can start baby steps forward, even with a balsamic conjunction. Follow? So there can be, well, I've already said that, there's extreme frustration that can come along. So consciousness now becomes highly internalized and self-contemplative. We have to go, excuse me, wrong button. We have to go to larger and larger understandings of universal reality. What's the natural way to be in a relationship, Venus, Mars? Okay. What's the natural way for Jupiter, balsamic, Saturn to function in society, career-wise, relative to the signs and houses? So this is where we come back to source. What would you have me know, source? 2 planets. Faster planet asking slower planet. What would you have me do, source? Okay, makes sense, everybody? Following with this? Okay, you're very good. And of course, that balsamic phase, how to be of service to another and the whole relative to that opposite of the gibbous phase. Only instead of the what EA will call the humiliations of gibbous phase, you know, and I don't want to let go of ego. Here, we're learning how to have ego, balanced soul, have soul, balanced universal soul. Not surrender, co-create. Okay, that was a lot in 75 minutes. You did very well. Any burning questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have Virgo at 13. I have Sun at 13 degrees Virgo and Mercury at 14 degrees Virgo. So that is the
Sun at 13 Virgo, Mercury at 14 Virgo. I look at that as new phase. Mercury is 1 degree past the sun. I look at that as new phase. Yeah, I compare inner planets, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars to Sun. Other burning questions? Yes.
Do you take the ascendant or just the planets?
Pardon?
Do you take the ascendant too or just the planets?
When I said the 4 angles earlier, I meant
So,
ascendant first house, nadir fourth house, etc. Yeah, and they go counterclockwise. So I start with the planet. No, they go clockwise, excuse me. I start with the planet and I go clockwise with the angles. Yes.
So I'm used to seeing these with the sun and moon, of course, we all are. And, you know, in that case with the sun and moon, it's you can characterize the life, I guess, in a certain way. And I'm just wondering, so if you take it to each planet, of course, you've got all of a sudden a lot more of these, a lot.
Yes.
And so I guess you would make it, this characterizes that particular Mercury, Jupiter, whatever.
Yeah. You can, if you want to, take a planetary pair, whatever 2 planets fascinate you. Mercury left brain, Jupiter right brain. And just look at charts with them in those 8 phases, with or without aspects. I mean, when you look at the fact that every planet is in a phasal relationship to every other planet, it can get pretty complicated real fast. But human consciousness is complicated. Every part of ourself is relating to every other part of ourself. And again, I was blessed to discover 0 to 360 when I first started studying astrology. And I'm just so grateful for it because it really does help with interpretation. And it can help you take your interpretations to a much deeper level with clients. One more.
question from the chat.
Okay.
Is, how do you compare a planet that's retrograde if you take the direction into account?
Okay, if we have a planet that is retrograde natally, that planet, if it's the slower moving planet, it's still the starting point or the 0 point. Okay, understand? And then the faster moving planet compared counterclockwise. Mhm. One more.
I'm sorry,
No.
I'm just getting, I'm trying to figure this out in my brain. So the personal planets, so say it was Mercury or Venus, let's say Venus to the sun.
Mhm.
So you start with Venus and then go counterclockwise to the sun, or do you start with the sun and go to Venus?
Correct.
So without it-
Start with the sun.
And then the outers, you're doing the outer.
I
planets
flip, yeah,
to the sun.
Jupiter, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, okay, so
Mhm.
inner planets, the sun to the planet, outer.
Yeah.
planet
Yeah.
to the sun. Okay.
Yeah. And I've done that now for about 10 years. I wrote forecasting and now I do a new moon, full moon. Here, let me give you this. There you go. And now I do new moon, full moon podcasts. And because we're so geocentric, I just ended up switching to comparing the inner planets, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars to the sun. Now, because you said that, if it's Mercury, Venus, Mercury's faster, Venus is slower. You start with Venus counterclockwise to Mercury. Okay. All right. Yep. Hold on. I'm starting to get this. I got to find it. There you go. Thank you very much, everyone.